Hello, angels. Welcome to today's history and geography lesson. I hope you're all well, and I hope your family members are also doing okay. We're continuing our unit on the discovery of the New World and the foundation of the United States of America. So, this is lesson 2, and you will again be focusing on text comprehension for this unit. And comprehension is the ability to understand the meaning or the importance of something. So within comprehension is to be aware of what you are reading, and do you actually understand the information that you are taking in? And are you able to identify also what you don't understand? And as well as that, using strategies to help you resolve comprehension issues, such as asking the right questions, using the dictionary, and of course, talk for learning. So this lesson is for Tuesday, the 5th of May, and your LI is to understand the motive behind exploring the Americas. So let me remind you that at any point in time, you can pause the video as much as you need to listen or to read the text and reread the text yourself. Also, don't forget to write your lesson intention and date your work before submitting it via email. So your task for today's lesson, I would like you to generate between 6 and 10 comprehension questions for someone reading the text to answer. Make sure that your comprehension questions are based on the text passages that we're going to read. So for today's lesson, I am going to be reading chapters 4, 5, and 6 on the history story of exploring the Americas, Christopher Columbus. Ideally, I would like you to generate minimum 6 questions. And if you are able to generate more than 10, then please feel free. All right. Remember, your questions need to relate to chapters 4, 5, and 6. So here an example of what a comprehension paper looks like. You have the text right here, and then underneath you have questions that you need to answer that relates to the text. So this is what you are going to be doing today. You're going to be generating your own questions based on chapter 4, chapter 5, and chapter 6. And I would like you to generate again between 6 and 10 questions. Okay? Again, if you can do more, then fantastic. So, chapter 4, the voyage west. The 3 ships sailed across the ocean. The sailors were not sure of what they might find. There might be pirates or even sea monsters. If things went wrong, no one would be able to help them. Still, the sailors kept busy. They cleaned the decks and they fished in the ocean. Each day, 2 or 3 sailors cooked a meal for everyone on their ship. At night, the sailors slept on the deck. There were no beds. Only the 3 captains had their own small cabins. On stormy nights, the men tied themselves to the ship's rails so they wouldn't fall into the ocean. Christopher and his men sailed for many weeks, but they did not find any land. The men began to be afraid. What if Earth really was flat and they sailed right off the edge? What if they ran out of food and water in the middle of the ocean? The sailors wanted to return home, but Christopher was still sure his plan will work. Then one day, small birds flew alongside the ship. The sailors knew that small birds often flew near land. Soon after, a sailor spotted something. "Land! Land!" he shouted. After almost 2 months, the sailors were excited to see a sandy beach and beautiful green trees. They had found an island. In his diary, Christopher wrote down the date, October 12th, 1492. So here, I would like you to generate some questions for chapter 4. Again, pause the video or go back and listen to it again. Chapter 5, Exploring the Americas. Even though the island they found was home to the Taino, a people who lived and farmed on the island, Christopher named it San Salvador. He placed a flag in the sand. When Christopher met some of the Taino, he called them Indians because he thought he had arrived in the Indies. Christopher and his men spent a few months exploring other islands, including Cuba. The Taino lived on these islands too. The islands had palm trees and white sand. Christopher and his men collected some gold, tobacco plants, pineapples, and wild turkeys to take back to Spain. When Christopher arrived back in Spain, he was treated as a hero. The king and queen were happy with him. They agreed to pay for more ships so that he could sail back across the ocean. Christopher made 4 more voyages across the ocean looking for gold, spices, and jewels. So again, pause the video and generate some questions on chapter 5. Chapter 6. The Pilgrims Search for a New Home. More than 100 years after Christopher Columbus sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, another group of Europeans also set off. They were traveling to what is today the United States of America. Their story is a little different from that of Christopher Columbus. Let's meet them and find out about the adventures they had. Elizabeth stood with her parents, ready to board a ship named the Mayflower. Elizabeth and her family were leaving Plymouth, England, to sail to America. Elizabeth, her parents, and friends were known as pilgrims. The pilgrims were making this voyage so that they could live in a place where they could worship God in their own way. The Mayflower had been loaded with things the pilgrims would need for the voyage and for when they arrived. There were axes and saws for building homes, hooks and lines for fishing, seeds for their gardens, and warm clothes for the winter. There were also barrels of water, dried meat, vegetables, biscuits, and cheese. As the Mayflower sailed away, leaving England behind, Elizabeth began to explore the ship. The first thing she noticed was that it was crowded. Below deck was dark and stuffy. In the darkness, she saw that there were hammocks for people to sleep in. Even though the voyage would be long and dangerous, Elizabeth was excited. Now pause the video and generate some questions on chapter 6. So, you have your task, and we are very much looking forward to reading your questions. Remember, minimum 6 questions. If you are able to generate more than 10 questions, then fantastic. And remember, make sure your questions is in keeping with chapters 4, chapter 5, and chapter 6. And lastly, I wanted to remind you all again about the free History Storytime podcast with over 20 episodes and 20 stories for you guys to choose from. Remember, these are stories by children and for children, and I know that you guys will really, really enjoy this. So again, to remind you, it's a free resource, so you don't have to pay for it at all. It's completely free. You've got the web link to be able to access the podcasts, all right? And again, so many different stories to choose from and listen from as well. Remember, it's not just for you. You can also enjoy it with your family members as well, okay? So make sure you check it out, all right? Take care.